So typically in these videos, we talk about cognitive behavioral therapy techniques as it applies to more clinical cases such as anxiety or depression. But that's not to say that cognitive behavioral therapy techniques can't be used for everyday life interactions. In fact, I use a number of them myself just throughout the day. I find them very useful because it does help you just manage your day, your thoughts, your emotions in what I think is a more helpful way. Often throughout the day, one way in which I use them is to help manage those emotions that can happen throughout the day when it comes to, let's call it, irritation or frustrating moments. This can come when commuting to work, maybe receiving some negative news through an email or snail mail that you're not interested in. One of the ways to manage those emotions in the moment is to use something called the name it to tame it skill. And this works really well because often, if we're not observing or aware of what the unpleasant emotions are, then very often those emotions will get the best of us. They sneak up on us. So, a good way to manage that and not let these emotions sneak up on you is to put a name to what you're experiencing, and that will actually help give you a sense of control. So if I'm driving into work and somebody cuts me off and all of a sudden I become frustrated, I take a deep breath initially and try to observe the fact that I'll just say, hey, I'm feeling frustrated right now. And simply that step of observing what I'm feeling and putting a name to it does help reduce the intensity. And that's the important thing here to note, is that we can reduce the intensity of these emotions, but we don't make them go away. We just bring them down to more manageable levels. So using that name it to tame it skill is a good way to manage the emotion day to day and manage those situations where these unpleasant emotions might get the best of you. It's also good to try to use the urge surfing skill as well when it comes to managing our emotions throughout the day. So, similar to name it to tame it, urge surfing is more of a constant moment to moment practice where you are observing the emotion that you're experiencing. And then I'll often ask people to also rate the intensity of that emotion on a scale of 1 to 10. So going back to my example before about being cut off on the highway when I'm commuting into work, I'm going to observe that I'm feeling frustration, and the intensity of that frustration will be a 5 out of 10. If I were to use the urge surfing skill, I would take a breath, and then upon my exhale, I would do the exact same thing. I would observe the emotion I'm experiencing, in this case, also frustration, and then rank the intensity of that emotion, in which case it might be a 6 out of 10, because now I'm really going to some thought in my head about how that guy shouldn't have done that in that situation. And you continue to do this pattern that I've just described, where you take a beat, you observe the emotion, and then you rate the intensity of it. And we call it urge surfing because all emotions initially rise up and then they hit their peak and they will start to go down, similar to a wave. We want to observe ourselves riding that emotional wave as opposed to being overtaken by it. So when you observe the emotion and rank the intensity of that emotion, it really gives you a chance to observe what's happening to you, and then often the intensity of it will go down a lot faster over time. Another kind of real life, real world example when it comes to managing our emotions using cognitive behavioral therapy is simply around the behaviors that we do. So, stress management skills are extremely useful in day to day life. Often, when we are in social situations or in work situations, often our breathing is going to be changing, and it's probably changing in a way that's leading towards more anxiety because we're probably breathing a little more quickly and a little more rapidly than we're used to. And that can actually, over time, if it becomes more intense, can trigger more of a fight or flight response. So a way to manage that using CBT is to really observe that it's happening as best you can, and then use more deep or relaxed breathing skills when you're able to. Simply taking a deep breath in through your nose, holding it for a beat, and then exhaling out through your mouth is something you can always do when you're sitting in a meeting or if you're walking on your way to work. Deep breathing really is a useful cognitive behavioral therapy skill to use in the day-to-day interactions. And for more help with these day-to-day interactions, please feel free to reach out to us at Good Therapy SF.